Hey everyone, my name is FlygonHG, and this is the video of my attempts at a Pokemon Platinum Hardcore Nuzlocke, using only Water-type Pokemon. Let's lay out the Hardcore Nuzlocke rules. The basic Nuzlocke rules always apply. 1. If a Pokemon ever faints in battle, it is considered dead. And 2. I can only catch the first Water-type Pokemon I find on each route. There will be a few exceptions for Pokemon used exclusively for HMs though. The next set of rules are considered Hardcore Nuzlocke rules, to make the run more difficult. Items cannot be used in battle. No potions, no X items. Held items, however, are allowed. Next, I cannot level any of my Pokemon I use past the next gym leader's highest leveled Pokemon until the start of the gym battle. And lastly, battle mode must be on set for the whole run. Okay, those are the rules. Now let's talk about Water-type Pokemon. Unlike my first Monotype Nuzlocke challenge, where I used Grass types in Pokemon Emerald, there's a lot of pretty great Water-type Pokemon. They're the most common type of Pokemon, and there's a lot of secondary type combinations that provide relatively good coverage for major weaknesses. In Platinum, there are a total of 17 unique Water-type evolution lines, when you count Bidoof and Eevee, who both evolve into Water-type Pokemon. That's a lot more encounters than my last few challenges, so I'm looking forward to having a bit more fun with this one. On top of that, Pokemon like Gyarados, Vaporeon, Milotic, and even Empoleon are very good Pokemon, so this challenge should be a bit less stressful. Let's see if that's true. Quick reminder before we start, I play with Species Clause, so I'll be able to re-roll encounters until I get a unique encounter, but I can only use one of each unique evolution line. Alright, let's do this. I start the game by picking the Water-type starter Piplup, obviously. I name her Pippin, because we're going with a Lord of the Rings nickname theme. I realize that Pippin is a boy, and this Piplup is not, but the name is too good, and I don't know if you know this, but there aren't that many female characters in Lord of the Rings. Anyways, as soon as I get Pokeballs, I go to Route 202 and catch a Bidoof. I name her Arwen. She's simple. I also pick up the Old Rod and head to Route 219 to pick up a Magikarp. I name him Gimli. And this 22-pound piece of premium seafood is going to be the absolute carry of this run. If you didn't know this already, Gyarados is a filthy Pokemon, especially for Nuzlockes. It's bulky, it has the ability Intimidate, which is a phenomenal ability, and it hits like a truck. And our Gimli has a lonely nature, which means Quarantine has been a bit easier on him, and he gets a buff to his attack, meaning he hits like a slightly bigger truck. That is, he will once he evolves into Gyarados. Right now, he's just here for moral support. It's time for our first rival fight. I name him Potato, because that's hilarious. I feel like I really don't need to explain why that's so funny. Anyways, the rival in Platinum is actually pretty good later in the game, but right now, he's a joke, because he won't even use a Grass-type move with his Turtwig. It's a pretty easy win. On our way to Orberg City, I pick up a Psyduck and name him Mary. With all the possible encounters collected, it's time to take on the first gym leader, Rourke. If you didn't figure it out from the fact that Rourke's name sounds like a drunk dad trying to name his son Rock, Rourke uses Rock-type Pokemon, which should be pretty easy for our Water types to handle. And it is. Cranidos is pretty scary, but with the extra level that Mary gets from taking out Geodude and Onix, he's able to outspeed Cranidos and knock it out with 2 water guns. Badge number 1 is ours. Next we make our way to Floroma Town, and on the way, Arwen evolves into her beautiful final form, a Bee-Barrel, and she finally gets access to the powerful move Water Gun. Pippin also evolves into Prinplup. Past Floroma Town, I catch a Shellos outside of Valley Windworks and I name him Bilbo. In order to progress though, we need to confront Galactic Commander Mars inside Valley Windworks. Her Purugly can be terrifying because of how fast and ugly it is. It's a notorious Nuzlocke killer. She starts the battle by leading with a Zubat, and I lead with Arwen. I set up with Defense Curl since Simple doubles changes to stats, so I'll get double the buff in defense. And then I take out the Zubat with 2 tackles. Purugly comes out, but thanks to the defense curls, she can't do much damage. Okay, unless she crits. But surely that won't happen twice, right? Yeah, I deserved that. All my videos are basically PSAs about critical hits and how to avoid them, but in this case, there's not much that I could really do. None of my other Pokemon could take a critical hit either, and Arwen is ultimately replaceable in this run anyways, so RIP Arwen. Bilbo and Mary take care of Purugly and we win the battle. After burying Arwen, I do what I should have done before taking on Mars. I grind up Gimli to level 20, where he evolves into the unstoppable monster that is Gyarados. and I make sure to do this leveling up on Shinx and Machop in order to pump him full of attack EVs so that he hits like an even bigger truck. Next, I catch a Buizel on Route 205 and I name him Legolas. After some training, it's time to take on the second gym leader, Gardenia. She has grass types, which is definitely a problem. Fortunately, Gyarados' nonsensical secondary typing of flying means that Gimli takes neutral damage from grass moves. But Gardenia's Roserade still hits pretty hard with Grass Knot, and I can't one-shot it, so I do have to be careful. Gardenia leads Turtwig and I lead Pippin. I hit the Turtwig with Pluck, which actually gets a critical hit and one-shots it. That's actually a little inconvenient because I wanted to set up Stealth Rocks on the Turtwig, but Cherrim comes out next and I set up Stealth Rocks now. I then hit 2 Plucks for some damage. I need to get Gimli in before Roserade comes out, but I can't afford the damage that Cherrim would do with the Magical Leaf. So to get Gimli in safely, Legolas comes out and makes the ultimate sacrifice. Rest well, soldier. Gimli comes in, takes out the Cherrim, and levels up, getting just enough speed to outspeed the Roserade. Roserade comes out last, and Gimli hits it with a return, while she Oh. I guess that was a one-shot. Either my calculations were a bit off, or Gardenia's Roserade has some very mediocre defense IVs, because that was never supposed to be a one-shot. This means I sacked Legolas for no reason. My bad. Well, thanks for the needless sacrifice anyways, my guy. With that, we get badge number 2. Up next is the other notorious Plasma Commander, Commander Jupiter. She has a Skunk Tank that loves to crit and a Zubat with a sneaky Giga Drain tech in Platinum. I lead Bilbo, who happens to have a hidden power type of Psychic, really lucked out there, and it takes out the Zubat with 2 hidden powers. Skuntank comes out, and I switch to Gimli, which lowers the Skuntank's attack with Intimidate. But that doesn't actually matter if he crits. Fortunately, he doesn't, as he hits 2 Night Slashes while Gimli goes for a return. Gimli probably won't knock it out with another return, and Skuntank might actually knock out Gimli with a Night Slash crit here, but I decide to risk it. And it turns out that it's actually me who gets the crit. Oh, how the turns have tabled. With that, we head to Hearthome City, and once I'm there, Bebe, she gives me an Eevee who I name Frodo, because he is just the purest and the most innocent of us all. It'll be a hot second before he gets to be a water type, but his normal typing is actually somewhat useful for the third gym leader, Fantina, who uses ghost types. She leads Duskull, who gets one shot with a bite from Gimli. Another bite also one-shots Haunter. Mismagius comes out last, outspeeds Gimli, hits him with a Confuse Ray, and survives a bite as Gimli breaks through Confusion. I switch out to Frodo to cure the confusion, and he shakes off a Shadow Ball. And then I switch back to Gimli, who breaks through another confusion and knocks out Mismagius, winning us the 3rd gym badge. Before we can leave Hearthome City, Potato wants another battle. He leads Staravia and has a surprisingly terrifying strategy that involves Double Team and Endeavor. He gets 1 hit point away from killing Pippin thanks to some misses. I switch to Gimli and thankfully hit a Dragon Rage because otherwise, that entire battle could have been a complete disaster. Gimli sweeps through the rest of his team with no problem, but that was really truly terrifying. On the other side of Potato, a fisherman gives me a good rod, so I can get a few fishing encounters from around Sinnoh. On Route 209, I catch a Goldeen and I name her Galadriel. On Route 218, I catch a Finneon and name her Eowyn. And in Eterna City, I catch a Barboach and name him Gandalf. Gandalf joins the team, and I box Galadriel and Eowyn. Not very good Pokemon. In the Salacian Ruins, I also get a Water Stone, so I immediately evolve Frodo into a Vaporeon. On our way to Veilstone City, I find a Marill on Route 215. Marill can have the ability Thick Fat or the ability Huge Power. Huge Power doubles its attack stat, making it the significantly preferable ability. But based on the damage that it's doing to Frodo, it seems like this one has Thick Fat instead. So I decide to skip it for now, so I can get another chance at Marill with Huge Power on a later route. Before taking on the 4th gym, I do some training, where Bilbo evolves into Gastrodon, and Gandalf evolves into Whiscash. The 4th gym leader, Maylene, uses fighting types, but her ace is a Lucario that's weak to ground moves. I try to come up with some sort of justification for teaching one of these guys the Earthquake TM that this game just gives you before the 4th gym, but it's just so much better on Gimli. Gyarados is a monster of a Pokemon, so I'm gonna give him the 100 base power Earthquake TM. Maylene leads with Meditite, who gets intimidated by Gimli. This thing does no Rock Tomb, so I switch to Bilbo. Bilbo gets hit by a critical Drain Punch as I hit a Mud Slap to lower accuracy. Not wanting to get killed by a second crit, I switch to Gandalf and eventually take down the Meditite. Lucario comes out next, but he's completely walled by Gimli and goes down to an Earthquake. Machoke is last, and this thing also knows Rock Tomb, so a few switches between Gandalf and Gimli take it out. And that gets us the 4th gym badge. Next up, we head south to Pastoria City. On the way, Mary evolves into Blue Duck. Once we get to Pastoria City, I go straight to the Great Marsh to catch a Wooper, which I named Smeagol. I know this Wooper is a girl, but I'm running really low on female Lord of the Rings characters here, so you might want to take that up with Tolkien. Smeagol is also now my 3rd water ground Pokemon, but it's also the best of the 3, so he replaces Gandalf. Soon after that, Smeagol evolves into Quagsire, which has just the derpiest of sprites in Platinum. Look at this idiot. Such a great sprite. Anyways, I make my way to Route 212 to catch a Marill, and I name him Samwise, but he has the ability Thick Fat again, aka he's garbage, so he goes into the box. Next, we have what I can only describe as just about the dumbest thing to ever happen to me in any Nuzlocke. I'm training up Frodo the Vaporeon in Lost Tower, on Ghastlies, since he knows Bite. Now, what you might not know is that Lost Tower is covered in fog, also known as the dumbest part of Sinnoh. Whoever came up with this should be fired. And since I like teaching my Pokemon good moves instead of useless crappy moves, I didn't bother teaching anyone Defog to help remove all of the fog. So this means that the accuracy of every attack is dropped by a factor of 3/5. So, when I encounter this Ghastly, I happen to miss Bite twice in a row. Normally, not a problem. However, these 2 bites happen to be the last 2 Bite PP that I have, since I've been training Frodo for a while now. Outside of Bite, Frodo only knows normal moves, meaning that he can't hit Ghastly. Again, normally not a problem. I'll just switch out to someone who can hit it, or just run from the battle. Only problem is, in the turns that I missed Bite, this Ghastly used Curse, which takes a 1/6 of my health every turn. And then he used Mean Look, which prevents me from switching or running. So I am completely powerless as I have to just watch this level 18 Ghastly kill Frodo. The Fellowship has failed. After taking an appropriate amount of time to grieve, and kick myself for being such a moron, I bring Gandalf back onto the team. During some training, Pippin evolves into Empoleon, and after a bit more training, it's time to take on the 5th gym leader, Crasher Wake. But not before getting surprise challenged by Potato right outside the gym. I feel like this happens once every challenge, where my rival will randomly pop up to challenge me when I least expect it. Fortunately, other than his Staravia and its Endeavor tactics, it's a pretty tame fight, and nobody goes down. As I was saying, now it's time to fight Crasher Wake, who also fancies himself a Water-type trainer, but the question is, who's better? It's me. Crasher Wake is a pushover. Badge number 5 is pretty easy. Now that we have access to Surf, we have a few more encounters to get. I forgot that I could fish in Pastoria City to get a Remoraid, so I do that first though. I name him Boromir, and for now, he goes into the box. Next, I head to Route 220 to catch a Tentacool named Saruman, and Route 213 to catch a Wingull named Elrond. Both join the team, replacing Gandalf and Bilbo. Soon after, Saruman evolves into Tentacool. Elrond also evolves into Pelipper, but I don't have that footage because I forgot to record it. However, I do have this picture of a Wingull, which I can replace with a picture of a Pelipper. Hopefully you get the idea. Anyways, in Canalave City, Potato wants a rematch on a bridge, which seems like a very dangerous place to have a Pokemon battle. But since his Staraptor no longer has Endeavor, and he hasn't taught it close combat yet, this fight is actually pretty easy. Next, I challenge the 6th gym leader Byron, who's the drunk dad that named his kid Rourke. He leads Magneton, which goes down to a Mud Bomb from Bilbo. Steelix comes out and goes down to a Surf. His ace, Bastiodon, is last, and has the move Metal Burst, which is an attack that deals back 50% more damage than the damage taken. So I have to be really careful here. Fortunately, I can put it to sleep with Smeagol. Unfortunately, Smeagol gets hit with a taunt, which prevents me from using non-attacking moves. So I have to do a few switches. But once Bastiodon gets put to sleep, I switch in Pippin, and then I take it out with 2. Okay, or I get a crit with Surf, and that was all a huge waste of time. Alright, the 6th badge is mine. Next up is just a whole lot of Team Plasma stuff, but for now, none of it is particularly challenging. So let's go ahead and just skip to the 7th gym in Snowpoint City. Candace uses Ice-type Pokemon, including an Abomasnow that will kill anything on my team with a critical hit Woodhammer, and a Frostlass with Snowcloak that likes to avoid attacks when Hail is up. But now that my level cap is level 44, Gimli is finally able to learn Dragon Dance, one of the best setup moves in the game. She leads with Sneasel, and I lead with Saruman to set up Toxic Spikes. The toxic spikes are in case I miss all my attacks on Frostlass. After setting those up, I switch to Gimli and set up 2 Dragon Dances as Sneasel does some very baby damage. Now it's sweeping time. Earthquake knocks out Sneasel, and Aquatail knocks out Piloswine. Abomasnow comes out, but by equipping a Cherry Berry to Gimli and teaching him Natural Gift, I get a Fire-type move that one-shots the Abomasnow. He did set up the Hail though, so when Frostlass comes out, I don't want to risk a miss, so I decide to switch to Pippin. Frostlass uses Double Team, but Pippin resists all of her attacks, and I've given her a wide lens to increase her accuracy, so eventually Pippin connects with a Flash Cannon and Frostlass goes down, winning us the 7th gym badge. Before I can continue my wildly important gym campaign, I have to take a tiny detour to Mount Coronet to stop Team Plasma and, save the world from plunging into the distortion world. At the summit, I'm tag-teamed by Mars and Jupiter, but thankfully Potato comes in to help. This battle can occasionally be very tough, because Potato can oftentimes be pretty much dead weight, especially with his stupid Munchlax. However, I can just spam Surf, and that'll do damage to not only Mars and Jupiter's Bronzors, but also Potato's dumb little Munchlax. So Munchlax goes down, and Rapidash comes out. Another Surf kills both the Bronzors, and also Potato's Rapidash. Purugly and Skuntank come out, but a Brick Break from Potato's Floatzel and a Surf from Pippin kill the Purugly. Next, Golbat comes out, and I switch to Saruman as Potato's Floatzel goes down. A few Ice Beams from Saruman and an assist from Staraptor take out the rest of Mars and Jupiter's Pokemon. Potato actually pulled his weight on that one. Next up, Cyrus does this. Look, no one plays Pokemon for the plot. Eventually, I fall into a black hole where I have to face Cyrus. I've skipped the other Cyrus fights because they're relatively easy, but this one can canonically be very difficult. He leads Houndoom, but Saruman outspeeds him and hits him with a Choice Spec Surf for the one-shot. Next is Honchkrow, who gets one-shot by the queen of critical hits as I switch in Pippin. Next is Gyarados, and I get a free switch into my Gyarados as he Earthquakes. I set up 2 Dragon Dances and then sweep through Cyrus's team. Thankfully, Cyrus's Gyarados doesn't have Dragon Dance, otherwise, that would be a pretty terrifying fight. Speaking of terrifying, now I have to take on the Lord of Darkness, Giratina himself. He's a pretty scary Pokemon, but he's actually completely walled by Pippin. Steel typing is really amazing, and has pretty good synergy with water typing, especially before it was nerfed in later generations. Giratina just goes down to 2 Choice Specs Ice Beams. With that, the world is saved, and I can get back to the important things in life, forcing animals to fight each other for money. Now that I have access to Sunyshore City, I head to Route 223 and catch my final encounter, a Mantike, who I name Aragorn. Technically there is one more encounter remaining, a Feebas in Mount Coronet, but it's incredibly difficult to get, and I'm actually pretty happy with my team, so I don't bother. Anyways, I replace Elrond with Aragorn. I also replace Mary, who has basically become an HM Pokemon, with Boromir the Remoraid that I have in the box. The reason that I kept Boromir boxed until now is because in order to evolve Mantike into Mantine, I actually need to have a Remoraid in my party. It's a pretty cool and unique evolution mechanic. I train Aragorn and Boromir on Ghastly in the Old Chateau to max out their special attack. In the process, they both evolve, though I actually forgot to record Aragorn evolving, so you'll have to use your imagination. Next is the final gym leader, Volkner, who has electric types. This is simultaneously very scary and not scary at all. My ground water types are completely immune to electricity, and Earthquake from Smeagol should make it a pretty clean sweep. However, Smeagol is slower than all of Volkner's Pokemon, so I'm a bit worried that the chip damage from each of his Pokemon would put Smeagol in range of a kill from Volkner's Electivire, especially if the Electivire gets a critical hit. So instead, I plan to set up with Gimli, which might not seem ideal with his 4 times weakness to electric attacks. However, Volkner leads with Jolteon, whose only attacking electric type move is Charge Beam, which only has 10 PP. By leading Aragorn, I can bait a Charge Beam, switch to Smeagol, who's immune to the attack, and then switch back to Aragorn on a weak Iron Tail. I can rinse and repeat that until Jolteon runs out of Charge Beam PP. I also make sure to do this until he's completely out of Thunder Waves as well, because we don't really want to deal with paralysis. But once Jolteon is left with only quick attacks, it's an easy setup with Gimli, and then a clean sweep of the rest of Volkner's team. That's the 8th and final gym badge right there. The final challenge of this run is the Elite Four and the Champion. But before being able to take them on, Potato challenges me one last time. But I'm a bit over-leveled for this fight, so it's not particularly difficult. Most of his Pokemon go down to single shots, and those that don't never really do any real damage, so it's a clean win. after some final grinding to hit our level cap of 59, which matches Lucien's level 59 Gallade, here is my final team. It's an odd fellowship for sure, but unlike in most of these challenge runs, it's actually a pretty solid team. Let's see if they can take on the Elite Four, and most importantly, the champion. The first Elite Four member is Aaron, who specializes in bugs. He leads Yanmega, who goes down to an Ice Beam from Pippin. For the earlier Elite Four members, we're pretty overleveled. Heracross comes out next, but I've taught Pippin Drill Peck, which one-shots that as well. Vespiquen is next and goes down to a few Ice Beams while she just tries to build up her defenses. Next is Caesar, so I switch to Gimli to lower his attack with Intimidate, and then I switch to Boromir, because Boromir has Flamethrower, which I think is hilarious. Good job, little buddy. You earn your keep on this team. Last up for Aaron is Drapion, who isn't a bug type, but that's fine. Drapion gets completely walled by Pippin and goes down to a few surfs, and with that, Aaron is down. Up next is Bertha, but she's got ground types, so she's not particularly difficult for our water types. She leads Whiscash. I lead Pippin, who I've taught the TM Grass Knot that Gardenia graciously gave me after she murdered Legolas. With a Choice Specs, that's enough to one-shot Whiscash. And since Grass Knot increases power on heavier Pokemon, it's also enough to one-shot the Hungry Hippo that comes out next. Hippowdon did set up the Sand though, which is good for the Sandvale Glysaur that comes in next. So I switch in Smeagol and set up a Rain Dance. Then, a switch to Aragorn and a Rain-boosted Surf is more than enough to one-shot the Glysaur. Golem and Rhyperior in the back don't stand a chance against Rain-boosted Surfs either, so that's Bertha defeated. Next is Flint, the Fire-type trainer. And since this is Platinum, he actually has Fire types, so this is a pretty easy win. Saruman with a Choice Specs outspeeds and one-shots every single one of Flint's Pokemon except Magmortar, who wastes time setting up a Solar Beam for some reason, even though he knows Thunderbolt. The final Elite Four member is Lucien, who is actually very scary. He has Psychic-type Pokemon like Alakazam and Gallade, which can hit very hard and also have a lot of coverage moves. I'm going to need to set up with Gimli to make sure that I can outspeed and one-shot them before they can get off any attacks. Lucien leads Mr. Mime, but the Mr. Mime knows Thunderbolt, so just like with Volkner's Jolteon, I have to PP stall him until he's out of Thunderbolts. Psychic hits a bit harder on the switch than Volkner's Jolteon though, so I also have to use Pippin, and when that happens, the order of my Pokemon on the screen switches, and I'm not paying attention and accidentally switch in Aragorn instead of Smeagol. Unfortunately, that means that Aragorn gets hit by a Thunderbolt and goes down. I am so sorry, Aragorn. You did not deserve this, and this is completely my fault. I promise you, you will be avenged. From here, I do take it much slower, but eventually I get to the point where Mr. Mime has used up all of his Thunderbolts. I yawn him to sleep with Smeagol, set up 4 Dragon Dances, and then sweep through the rest of Lucien's team with Waterfall. That's the Elite Four, and we're only down 1 Pokemon, which admittedly was my fault. The last fight is Cynthia, the champion, who is notorious for being incredibly difficult and absolutely devastating Nuzlocks, especially with her ultra-powerful, ultra-fast Garchomp. Fortunately, with Gimli and Dragon Dance, things should be pretty easy. But on the off chance that something does go wrong with this strategy, Saruman should be able to outspeed and one-shot the Garchomp with Ice Beam, if I did my calculations correctly. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. Cynthia starts with a Spiritomb, and I start with Smeagol. I yawn the Spiritomb and set up Rain Dance on the next turn so that Gyarados can get a free switch in on Spiritomb's first turn of sleep. Gyarados sets up 2 Dragon Dances while Spiritomb takes a nap. I could easily get away with a 3rd Dragon Dance here, because even if Spiritomb wakes up and gets a crit, it shouldn't do enough to kill me. But that could cause problems in the back for Extreme Speed Lucario. So I decide to not be greedy and kill the Spiritomb with a Waterfall. Out comes Togekiss, but an Ice Fang is enough for the one... Okay, not a big deal, because Shockwave can't one-shot Gyarados from full health. You have got to be freaking kidding me. The one time to not get a critical hit. Unbelievable. But I guess that's the game of Pokemon sometimes. I think I can still win this, but that's pretty devastating. I bring Saruman out and kill the Togekiss with a few Choice Specs Ice Beams. And then out comes the Harbinger of Death, Garchomp. My calcs told me that I should outspeed it, and I should be able to one-shot it. But I also thought Togekiss would die to an Ice Fang, so I really have no idea. But in this case, I really can't do anything else, so I click Ice Beam and... okay, I outspeed it. And I get the one-shot. Turns out it's a critical hit, so we'll never actually know if my calculation was right, but at this point, I'm just insanely relieved. Never underestimate Tentacruel, by the way. It's a very good Pokemon. Very fast, pretty strong, very bulky. Roserade comes out next and goes down to 2 Ice Beams. In hindsight, I probably should have switched out because Extrasensory did a lot of damage. Next is Milotic, who's pretty scary because she knows Mirror Coat, which doubles the damage the user receives from special moves. So unless I can one-shot it, we kinda have a problem. And I can't one-shot it. I switch to Pippin and start chipping away with Flash Cannon. I'm hoping for a special defense drop, but it never comes. Eventually, I get Milotic to low enough health where a Grass Knot can finish her off and she goes down. Cynthia's last Pokemon is Lucario, but we aren't out of the woods yet. This thing is faster than Pippin and will do big damage to anything that I have in the back. So unfortunately, I have to sack Pippin in for a clean switch. Godspeed, friend. You were here from the beginning, and you almost made it to the very end. Based on what I have left, I have exactly 1 play left. And fittingly, it's to sacrifice Boromir. I send Boromir out, who gets hit by an Aura Sphere, and that Aura Sphere does just barely enough to mean that a critical hit would have killed him. Thankfully though, he doesn't get that critical hit, and Boromir is able to retaliate with his Surf. This puts Lucario in range of a kill from Saruman. To get the clean switch in though, Boromir has to get sacked. The last thing to do is switch in Saruman and knock out Lucario with Surf. But here, if Lucario gets a critical hit with Extreme Speed, that'll be enough to kill Saruman. Thankfully, he doesn't get that, doesn't even go for it, and Saruman hits the Surf, clinching a very hard-earned victory. That last battle was terrifying, but back against the wall, we somehow managed to turn it around and get into the Hall of Fame. The only survivors of our final team, ironically, were Saruman and Smeagol. Today, I guess evil wins the day. Overall, this was an incredibly fun run. Save for a few points here and there, it wasn't terribly difficult, but there was enough of a challenge to keep things interesting and keep me thinking. Gyarados was the MVP of this run for sure, and in general, he's just incredible in most Nuzlocks, so that's not entirely a surprise. I think this challenge would be significantly harder without using Gyarados, maybe even impossible, since I'm not sure how you'd be able to beat Gardenia. But banning Dragon Dance strats might be a way to make the latter part of this game a little bit harder. Anyways, I'd highly recommend this challenge if you're interested in giving it a go. Platinum is a great game. The grinding is quick with Iron Island and the Versus Seeker, and the large number of water types in the game gives you a lot of versatility to work with. Maybe there's some way that I could have won with a Sea King on my team. Up next for me is completing the Monotype Trifecta by doing Pokemon White 2 with Fire-type Pokemon only. This should be a very tough challenge, so I'm really looking forward to it. Stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed watching this video, please like the video and subscribe. Or don't. I don't know. Whatever. Thanks for watching, and remember to always, always, always play around the critical hit.